The Honor 10 and the OnePlus 6 occupy a similar space in the smartphone market. These are both affordable devices with flagship-esque specs. You're looking at performant dual-lens cameras, top-end chipsets, and tons of neat features. But there can only be one, so who shall rise victorious?
One shall stand, one shall fall.
In terms of the design, both devices look pretty similar at first glance. And the first thing that's likely to hit you in both cases is that these devices are pretty much all screen, with 19:9 aspect ratios and big old notches at the top. Now if there's one thing I've learned working at Android Authority, it's that everyone loves a notch, without exception. Psych, obviously this is a divisive feature, but the good news is that you can eliminate that notch in both cases, so you can have your cake and eat it too. The OnePlus 6 has a slightly bigger screen at 6.28 inches versus 5.84 inches, but both are pretty generous in that regard. Overall though, I'd say the OnePlus 6 is the winner for sure for two reasons. A, it's an AMOLED display giving it deeper blacks and punchier colours, and B, it's covered in Gorilla Glass 5. The Honor 10 doesn't specify what type of glass it uses, but it feels a lot softer and seems more prone to chips and scratches in my time with it so far. It's also a bit dimmer and not quite as crisp, although it's still a nice screen. Both sport Full HD Plus resolutions. It's also worth noting that the Honor 10 has more of a chin on it, owing to the decision to place the fingerprint sensor around the front. I've heard some commenters point out already that this seemingly contradicts the choice of a notch design. The OnePlus 6 meanwhile keeps its sensor around the back, which is arguably the smarter decision. That said, the Honor 10 does boast an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor that claims to be faster and operate better even with wet fingers. And the Honor 10 sports that dazzling Aurora glass rear panel. Made from 15 layers of glass, it's quite a bold statement and shimmers in all kinds of different colours depending on the angle of the light hitting it. It won't be for everyone, some people might find it a bit ostentatious, but it certainly sets the Honor 10 apart as something different. That said, the OnePlus 6 is no slouch in the looks department either. It's also made completely from glass, with each colour utilising a different material finish, and overall a very premium effect. It generally feels a bit weightier and heftier in the hand as compared with the Honor 10. But do keep in mind that the OnePlus 6 is slightly more expensive than the Honor 10, so it's only fitting that it should have a slightly more premium build quality. Neither device is IP certified, but they do both support headphone jacks. As for the specifications, both of these devices are running top tier chipsets, which is fantastic news at this mid-range price point. The Honor 10 has the Kirin 970, while the OnePlus 6 uses the Snapdragon 845. Both are the latest offerings from their respective manufacturers, but the Kirin 970 has been around a little bit longer, and it shows in the benchmarks. The 845, and therefore the OnePlus 6, is the superior performer when it comes to gaming and general smooth operation. The 970 is all about that NPU though, and this is what allows the Honor 10 to boast a number of advanced AI features, mostly involving the camera and memory management. Either way, it should be safe to say you'll be very well served by either of these options in the horsepower department. The OnePlus 6 does have a slight edge in the RAM department though, with the option between 6GB or even 8GB versus just 4 for the Honor 10. Both come with 128GB of storage, and again you can bump that up even further to 256 on the OP6, but you won't be able to expand either via an SD card. The OnePlus 6 might also be a little bit snappier thanks to its near stock version of Android. With Oxygen OS it's not quite stock, but it's certainly a lot less bloated than the EMUI 8 on the Honor 10, and a lot of people don't like EMUI, I count myself among them. Fortunately though, the stylistic choices can at least be eliminated with a new launcher and a few other customizations, so this won't be a deal breaker for most people. This is a matter of opinion though, but I do think most people are going to prefer the software experience on the OnePlus 6. Both devices are very similar in terms of battery. The OnePlus clocks in at 3,300 mAh, while the Honor 10 squeezes in just a tiny bit more juice with a 3,400 mAh. They both have fast charging, but neither has wireless support. Finally, the cameras. Here we have a dual lens setup in both cases. You get an iPhone-like vertical array on the OnePlus and a more original horizontal layout for the Honor. In terms of the specs, the OnePlus 6's main camera is 16 megapixels with a nice wide aperture of f1.7, and it also features both EIS and OIS, and that's backed up by a secondary 20 megapixel sensor. It can do super slow-mo and record videos up to 4K at 60 FPS. Like nearly every other smartphone camera these days, it can also do portrait mode effects. The Honor 10 meanwhile comes with a 24 megapixel rear camera backed up by another 16 megapixel lens. So it wins on the megapixel front, although it has a slightly narrower aperture at f1.8. It's also a shame that this doesn't have any optical stabilization. It does feature some impressive AI photography tricks though, which allows it to do things like recognizing flowers or food in shots in order to adjust the settings for the best effects. Your mileage may vary in terms of how beneficial this is for you, however. What Honor also brings to the table though, and what's often overlooked, is a smorgasbord of cool options and features in the camera app, including my favourite long exposure mode for light painting and star tracking. These go beyond just gimmicks and they're actually really nice features to have. Oh, and of course, there's portrait mode. Ultimately, which of these is the better camera might well come down to your priorities and your personal preference. Both do a great job either way, and especially for the price point. Oh, and both phones also have decent front-facing cameras too. The OnePlus 6 sports a very respectable 16 megapixel shooter, while the Honor 10 has an even more impressive 24 megapixels. So to wrap up, what are we looking at here? Well, first of all, we're looking at two incredible phones for the asking price. Spoilers for my Honor 10 review, by the way. When I reviewed the Nokia 7 Plus, I thought that was crazy good value. Then came the Honor 10 with its near flagship looks and performance, and now the OnePlus 6. The bottom line? Samsung, Google and Apple are going to have to work extra hard next year to justify their super high price points, or introduce some serious new innovation. Both of these are fantastic phones and a strong argument could be made for either. It'll largely come down to personal preference and which features matter most to you. For example, I love the light painting and star tracking modes on the Honor phones so much that would almost be enough to clinch it for me. But I'm probably alone in that. And do remember that this isn't a completely fair comparison, the OnePlus 6 is a little more expensive than the Honor 10. Of course, declaring an absolute winner in a VS video like this is folly. Not only is the entire thing a matter of subjective opinion, but it's also a surefire way to get a huge number of dislikes on a video, lots of comments saying that we're biased and all that. But with that said, the OnePlus 6 is the winner.